What is going on, everybody? Heart Pirates TCG here. I'm bringing you a tier list. This time I went through and combed through OnePiece.dev and I actually have every leader in the game. I hope. So please, if I'm missing a leader, it's probably not very good. But I do apologize. I tried to get every leader. I'm pretty sure I have them, but we'll see in the comments, because every time I do one of these tier lists, I'm missing like one or two leaders. So hopefully I have them. I'm going to give you my honest feedback about these decks. And honestly, we're not going to really organize them too heavily by like in here. I'm sorry, I pointed, but you guys can't see what I'm saying. We're not going to organize them too heavily in like the lower categories, but in the upper categories, I think we'll organize them a little bit more. So without further ado, we'll kind of give our basis, and we'll talk about where is he at. Sakazuki, just to get it out the way. Where is my Sakazuki at? There he is right here. Okay, cool. I thought I was gonna have to remake the video. Okay, so Sakazuki is gonna be the best deck in the game. I believe, right? There's obviously going to be some counters to him, but you know that those might not see success into other parts of the meta. For example, I think ST10 Law is going to be really good into Sakazuki, but I think it really struggles into Enel, and I think it really struggles into a couple other decks that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Sakazuki is obviously going to be the best. We don't need to harp on it too much. I think he's going to be really, really, really annoying to deal with, and the entire meta is going to warp around him. And then we'll talk about a deck that I hate a lot, and that's Whitebeard. I think Whitebeard is either going to... I think he's still probably going to be either bottom of A or top of B. For right now, we'll put him in B tier. And the reason this is, guys, is because he loses to a lot of decks right now, right? Obviously, OP01 Law is coming back from the restriction list, so Law is always going to be somewhat viable into Whitebeard. Now, Whitebeard obviously can beat Law, but it just depends on the deck list, of course, and the pilot of the deck. But yeah, so Whitebeard is going to be very... he's going to be very tough into a lot of different matchups. Enel is just very survivable. So like Enel can just like basically outlast Whitebeard and grind him out, in my opinion. I think Luffy is going to be really good into Whitebeard because he can just ramp and drop big characters, and Magellan can push Whitebeard off curve. He has access to ST10 Law, the blocker, that can just get cards out of Whitebeard's hand, so that's always going to be an option. There's just a lot of different things that Luffy can do to slow him down. I think like a lot of other decks can slow him down too, like Doflamingo and stuff like that. We'll talk about Luffy now. Depending on the restriction list, I think Luffy's going to be probably A tier. If everything comes out, if everything comes back, right, and I'm talking obviously except for like Moby Dick, right? But if everything comes back, then I think this is an S tier. But if Newgate and Marco are still at 1, then this is at A tier, I believe. And that's just because with the new addition with the Secret Rare Luffy coming out next set, the 10 cost, I think this deck actually sees a lot more viability in ending the game, right? Because not only can it drop bombs like Shanks, and it now has access to the blocker Kid, which is really important for the strategy. Well, not really important, but pretty good still, and a few other cards. I think it also gets consistency back with Nami, and if you want to play the Dawn, you could play that too. But I think Luffy's going to be really strong. I think it's going to be really good into Law, just because Luffy is at all times a 6k leader, sometimes 7, and Law, the starter deck Law, is always going to be at like 3 or 4 Dawn. So he's pretty much not going to be able to even attack the Luffy. I mean, that's just from my experience, right? Playing Luffy and playing against Luffy, it's just very hard to get the Dawn you need. Especially because like you're just constantly bottom decking characters to beat Luffy, because like obviously even if you go up to like against Luffy, you have to play against what the deck wants to do, right? And it's like build a really wide board early and just go a bunch of 5s, but in this case you have to build a bunch of 6s, and sometimes you just don't have that, especially because like by the time you have Dawn to get to like 3 or 4 characters to 6k, they already have the Kid out on the board, so like you have to get up to 7k now, so it's just really tough to do that. So Luffy's going to be just like pretty good. I like him a lot going into the set. I think Law is always going to be so I had Law right here in D tier. I was just I might have been over exaggerating. He might have been in C. Obviously, he has a couple tops with the what's it called, the freaking Ezo engine, right? But I thought that deck was actual trash. I thought that deck literally had no chance against like any skilled like pilot. But you know, some people run hot, some people play really well, and they made that work. However, with Law coming back into the meta with Dodon and Nami back, it's right back up to A tier. It's still going to be really good. It's still going to be really annoying. It can go the same route against Kid or against Luffy that it did with Whitebeard, except Luffy doesn't have nearly as many cards, so we'll see how that works out. So yeah, Law is still going to be pretty good. I think it's going to have some tough matchups. I think it's going to really struggle into certain versions of Sakazuki and certain versions of ST10 Law. But we'll just see how that plays out. Rebecca actually gets a boost. I'm going to put Rebecca, because it can gain some survivability, we're going to put Rebecca in B tier. Just because Rebecca's going to really struggle into a lot of the decks coming up. Like, Rebecca's really going to struggle into Enel, because with Enel, like, you just like can't kill it, right? Like, your Kong gun like doesn't really work anymore, you know? I think it's going to struggle a lot into probably this Luffy, just because he can get to 7k and just like constantly swing the magic numbers. And then obviously like the board is really tall and you surround yourself with blockers, and because you're not attacking Luffy consistently with your characters, like Luffy's just going to be able to like have a ton of cards in hand, and like by the time you do go Luffy Kong gun, like it's just not going to be as effective. So I think this is going to struggle into a lot of different decks. I think this is going to struggle against Luffy's aggression too. But I mean, obviously it's still going to be good into I think ST10 Law. I think it's still going to be good into OP01 Law. I think it's going to be pretty good into Whitebeard, just because Whitebeard, like, there's a route to beating Whitebeard. It just kills itself pretty much. Luffy doesn't kill itself. So like, unless you consistently apply pressure, like they're just going to be able to like hyper ramp, and you're not going to be able to get all their cards off the board. So Rebecca in B tier for sure. And by the way, guys, this is going to be a long video, so if you want to like it, just to boost the algorithm, help other people see it, that'd be great. I was actually pretty right, for the most part, on my last tier list. I had Kid, Katakuri, Crocodile, and Film Dofi all in S tier in my last tier list video, and I was actually like pretty spot on. I mean, those were S tier decks, especially towards the end of the format, so I'm hoping this is going to be very similar, so let me know what you guys think. And then we're going to go ahead and put Luffy, the new purple Luffy, in A tier. Luffy will probably be like somewhere between like the other Luffy and Law. I think he's really strong. I think the only problem is he loses to Sakazuki like pretty hard, because his early game aggression can beat a lot of these decks, right? Like going Magellan into 7-cost Kid into Kaido, 9-cost Kaido is like pretty devastating to like all of these decks, except Sakazuki, because he can weather the storm and consistently remove those characters for very cheap and very efficient dawn count. So I think Sakazuki will just beat Luffy straight up. I could be wrong. There could be versions of Luffy that just outspeed Sakazuki, but I just haven't seen it yet. And obviously based on Japan, you know, ever since they figured out Sakazuki was the best deck, I mean, Luffy hasn't really even seen like, I don't think any tournament wins, but I could be wrong on that too. But I do think Luffy's definitely going to be worse than Sakazuki. But can be very good into these other decks, right? We're going to talk about Crocodile. Crocodile will probably just be in B tier for right now. The thing is, Crocodile can definitely beat both these decks in B tier. So I'm going to go ahead and put him above Whitebeard and Rebecca. But I think that, and it also can beat Luffy right here. It can beat this Luffy. The problem is it loses to Law, it loses to Zoro. It can lose to Sakazuki because it's basically a mirror match at the end of the day. And Sakazuki just has more resources to deal with him. But I do think Crocodile is strong. It does get the generic effects, or generic cards like Borsalino and like Blaze Hound and cards like that. But I just don't think there's no reason really to play Croc when you can just play Sakazuki. Does that make sense, guys? So yeah, that's him. Honestly, I'm gonna put Blurple Crocodile in C tier. I don't think any of the new support that Blurple Croc got actually benefits Blurple Croc, because when you think of it like this, right? What's the support that Croc got? It's the 7-cost Kid, which is easily removed by like all of these cards, right? It's removed by Rebecca, it's removed by Crocodile, it's removed by Sakazuki. So anything blue, it just gets removed, right? And then for anything not blue, it's like Blood Purple Croc just doesn't have the tempo against like Luffy or OP01 Law or ST10 Law. It's just like it just doesn't get it. And then obviously you get like Zoro, right? But like you don't really want to take life early because like Crocodile is supposed to be at 4 cards pretty much all the time, 4 or 5 cards. So it's just like Zoro doesn't really help that much either. I don't know, like Blurple Croc probably just isn't good. Honestly, we could put him in D tier, to be honest with you. Like he's the love of my life. Like I love Crocodile a lot. But he's just really bad, man. He's just not good right now. Zoro we're gonna put in A tier just because he's like just always gonna be fucking annoying. I normally don't swear in my videos, even though I swear a lot in real life, but I can't stand Zoro. I think Zoro is the most like annoying deck in the entire game. Like that and like the new Enel are just so annoying. But yeah, Zoro's just annoying. It literally just like plays 1-drops all the time and then just kills you, right? Like against obviously Sakazuki, it's not going to be as good because you can just drop Lucci and whatnot. But if you don't see Lucci and Blazehound, you're going to run over Sakazuki. So it's only a 4-life leader, and it lacks a lot of counter power too. Just because if you go wide against it, like it just doesn't have a lot of counters, right? Like unless, because a lot of people now are playing Sanji's Pilaf and Kaido to deal with like having very little cards in hand. And Zoro, if it runs hot, can just bypass every amount of control they have, because like you're spending, I mean, the thing is they're playing like very low cost of the ground stuff now. So like obviously they have like Blazehound and Lucci and whatnot, but like if you don't find those, or you do find those and they're able to kind of like push past that, all you're playing down is like Rebecca's and like Hina's, which they don't care about. They'll like Fire Fist it, and then they'll like Diable Jumble, and then you're just dead, right? So like Zoro could run hot, he can still definitely do something. I think I forgot Queen on here, guys. Jesus Christ, I think I forgot Queen. Queen, guys, if you're listening, please do not comment this, but Queen is probably going to be in like somewhere between B and A. B and A tier for Queen. It's just like it doesn't gain a whole lot until next set, which is set 6. In set 6, it's going to get the Sanji, which plays a 9 cost basically off the top of the deck, and it's also a 9 cost, so like that's going to be huge. Queen's going to be good in next set, just not this set. It's not going to be amazing this set, right? Because like it can beat a couple of these other decks, but it depends on how relevant ST10 Law is and how relevant OP01 Law and Zoro are, because all of those can kind of beat it. Zoro not as much, but it can kind of like out tempo it sometimes, depending on what they have, if they play Pound or whatnot. Next, we're going to talk about Magellan. Magellan's probably just going to be in B tier. Now, Magellan right now is actually pretty good. And my friend Hasm actually got top 16 at the Treasure Cup with Magellan. But next set, nothing really special happens. All of his tempo is just met by Luffy's tempo, and Luffy's just like overall just a more consistent leader. And then, sorry, I'm getting stuffed up a little bit. And then Sakazuki can obviously just bottom deck it. So that's that. Kid, probably going to be somewhere between B and A tier. I'm going to put Kid like probably like right in the middle. And the reason I think Kid is right in the middle is because if you look at some of the decks that are coming out, or that are relevant, you have decks like this Luffy, right? That OP05 Luffy, that basically kills itself, right? It just takes its own life. And then this Luffy only has 3 life. And then Sakazuki only has 4 life. So like if you do damage early to any of these characters, then they take their, like this one takes his own life. Basically what I'm saying is the leader effect can literally just kill you at any time, right? Like that leader effect is never going away. When you play against Kid, you always have to worry about 12-12. 12k swing, rest 3, restand them, 12 again. Right? And obviously the film engine is viable, right? You can swarm the board with Brooks and all that stuff, but you can play the Supernova engine if you want to. It's just like there's that leader effect, and aggression will never go away, and it depends on how much these decks how much these decks like play into other decks and tech into other decks, how good the kid will be. Because if they're not teching for green, kid will be good. If they are teching at least a little bit for green, I don't think kid will be as good, and he'll probably be at the bottom of A or top of B. But kid is like, his 12-12 swing is going to be just really good. I'm going to take a quick break real quick and go to the bathroom, and I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Okay, cool. So let's talk about Law. Law will be in A tier. I don't know exactly where in A tier he'll be, but he will be in A tier. Maybe S tier. Dude, Law gets a lot of stuff, right? Law gets the most cards to play with next set, right? He gets cards like Fire Fist and Gamma Knife and the new Heart Pirates Searcher, the Law, right? He gets 5-cost Kid. He gets a lot. There's just so many options, man. And the thing is, how relevant are these 6K leaders going to be? Just really determines how good Law is going to be. Because Law is so good, man. Like, I'm tempted to put Law in S tier. But I will leave him at probably the top of A right now, because his best matchup is probably going to be the best deck in the game, which is Sakazuki. I think Law absolutely bodies Crocodile. It bodies this Law right here, the OP01 Law. Dude, on the simulator, I've been bodying Zoros too. So I don't know if it's because they suck or what, but I don't know. But dude, I've been just like stomping people with Law. And not only do people not really know how to play against it, which is huge, right? It's like a noob stomper deck. But even like when it draws well, it feels like almost like it feels like suffocating, just like this Luffy does, but like in a different way, right? Like it's suffocating as in like it's swarming the field like Zoro, but it's taking away characters like Sakazuki. So I think this Law is really good. How the format goes, it might be an S tier, but I really like it at A. Maybe S, right? So we'll look out for that whenever the set releases, right? So next we'll talk about Zephyr. I like Zephyr a lot. He's gonna be in B. I think he's probably gonna be right above this. Actually, wait, hold on a second. Zephyr with Law and Zoro. Actually, no, Zephyr's in C. Zephyr is actually in B right now. In set 4.5. But with Law and Zoro coming back, with Luffy getting more aggressive, with Law, he's just he just, and the fact that like Kuzan can just keep getting bottom decked, even though he does get the new Kid blocker, it just gets bottom decked in 5 seconds. So it's just he just doesn't have a lot. It's kind of like Crocodile, to be honest with you, Blurple Crocodile. But I'm gonna put him in C just because he has more viability than Blurple Croc, because Blurple Croc is more defensive, and even its defense doesn't really do anything. At least with Zephyr, like with one turn you can like clear their entire board. With Crocodile you can like pretty much never do that. And then we'll put Smoker in C as well. I don't think there's any reason to play Smoker. I think the go-to black deck is Sakazuki, even though it's a mixture deck. But I think you know what's crazy, guys? I've been thinking about getting a Peloton, and there's literally like ads right here for a Peloton. Isn't that crazy? Like, I know obviously you can use like VPNs and stuff, but I think that is so absolutely wild that like on my phone I've been talking about getting a Peloton as like an extra form, even though I have a gym membership, as like a way to like work out at home. And it's crazy how like they're at the bottom of the screen. That's just wild to me. But yeah, Smoker, there's no reason to play that at all. Even Rebecca's like way better than Smoker at just removing characters. Like, Smoker doesn't have an identity anymore. It used to be KOing cards, and now it's a black deck, right? Katakuri, probably gonna put Katakuri in S tier. Sorry guys, I'm like getting stuffed up right now, but Katakuri is gonna go in S tier, just because he's really good into Sakazuki. He's pretty good into what's it called? Where is he at? Enel. He's pretty good into Enel. He's just like good into like, so he's like obviously like a gatekeeper deck. Depending on how good these 6K leaders are, will determine how good and obviously ST10 Law determines how good Katakuri is. But I think Katakuri is an S tier, just because he's like he could just play Big Bomb and swing 7K. He's just really good. Next, we're going to put Dofi somewhere in A tier as well, probably ahead of the Kid. For those of you guys who don't know, Birdcage is actually in this set. Birdcage, what it does is a 5-cost stage. And basically, every character that's 5 cost or lower on your opponent's side of the field cannot unrest during the refresh phase, right? So, like, if Zoro or Law attacks, like, well, Zoro especially, because they can't, like, just shambles their characters back. But if Zoro or ST10 Law or, like, any of these characters attack that are 5 costs or lower, then Birdcage will literally lock them out until they hit 10 Dawn, and then they KO everything. However, people are playing cards like Giltasuru and 7-cost Kid and Bullet or Rush Kaido so that they never get to 10 Dawn. And basically just Birdcage is just active forever. So it basically shuts off like every single card in your deck, right? In certain people's decks, right? So if you go into a Zoro and you're playing Birdcage Dofi, dude, they like auto loss. There's like nothing they can do because they don't play a single card over 5 costs, right? Because they just play 1-drops and 2-drops, and then they play their Marcos, right? So the second they turn sideways, they're out of the game forever, right? Because you're never getting 10 Dawn, ever. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and put. Let's talk about Ace. Now, depending on the restriction list, right? If everything comes back, like I said, except for the Moby Dick, the unforgivables, right? But if Marco and Newgate come back to 4, I think Ace will be an A tier. Just because Ace can be good into Sakazuki, just because like he can just like pop everything Sakazuki plays, very similar to Sakazuki, but he also has access to like double attacks, and he has access to like tempo cards like Ace to clear board. So I think Ace will be good if that happens. If not, he's probably somewhere in B tier, probably ahead of Magellan, but below all these other cards or all these other decks right here. Then we'll talk about Arlong. Arlong will probably be in B as well. He's probably, honestly, Magellan might be like probably the worst deck in B. So Magellan, the thing about Arlong, right, is he is a very aggro deck, and like I said about other aggro decks, half the decks are either for life or kill themselves, right? Like by taking their own life, right? So like Purple Luffy kills himself. And then you have ST10 Law, which has 4 life that doesn't really have a whole lot of counter they want to use. Sakazuki, same thing. Obviously, Luffy's a 3 life leader, but he's a 6K, so kind of makes up for that. But Arlong, like, with generic yellow support and like with some generic green support, it just like can like kind of aggro you out of the game in a way that not a lot of decks can do. The problem is, he's very similar to Bello Betty, actually, where like if you outlast his aggression, he automatically loses. There's nothing he can do. So that's Arlong. And then we'll do... Where is Bello Betty, actually? Because I want to talk about Bello Betty. I think Bello Betty is the most funny deck in the entire game. Because they can have like 3 2K characters and their leader, and you're like, damn, I'm going to lose next turn. Like... It feels so bad because your leader can always be at 4K, especially if you're playing decks like Luffy, who's like, he was only at 3 life, but you could put him at 5K. Oh my god, why am I getting so stuffed up? It's actually wild, right? But that's wild to me, right? Like with Karasu, I think his name is, you can always put their enemy leader minus 1,000 power for the turn, and then you can give 3 of your characters plus 3,000 power for a turn, which is just so good. It's literally just an activate made, trash a card, give your characters 3,000 power. That's like super Moby Dick, right? And then you usually have like 10 Dawn to work with, right? So you have like your characters, you have like 4 12K swings at a 4K leader. If you don't have like 2 blockers, you're dead. Like, dude, Bello Betty is actually pretty good. And in fact, I might actually put Bello Betty somewhere in A tier. Because I think if you don't play around this deck, you'll lose every time. You have to be very patient with this deck. Because if you don't clear their board and you overextend, you're dead instantly. Which I think it's good. I think this is how Zoro should have been. I think Zoro should have been this way, right? Where like if you don't kill your opponent as soon as possible, then you lose. But the fact that Zoro is like a resource deck, a resource aggro deck is just like crazy. So Bello Betty, I like it a lot. Kuro, I think is in D tier. I don't think Kuro does anything. Set. I'm gonna go get a tissue real quick, guys. So Kuro, to pick up where I last left off, Kuro, the only real support it got was that like vanilla, the 6/8, and now it can just get bottom decked. So like, they just don't. Kuro like doesn't do anything, honestly. Sakazuki, the black one, pure black, doesn't do anything. Not even gonna talk about it. Luffy, red, green, doesn't do anything. We're not gonna talk about it. Odin doesn't do anything. Not going to talk about it. Iceberg, same thing. Zoro, like, what are people saying Iceberg did? Iceberg got Zoro, and, like, the 7-cost kid, it still can't attack. It's like, it still loses cards at hand, like, super quick. And, like, it has, like, its own Onigashima, and it has a searcher for Oni. But it, like, just doesn't, like, do anything. You keep playing cards out of your hand, and there's, like, almost, like, no way to get the cards back unless you're playing, like, Queen. Or I don't know, actually, now that I think about it, you like if everything goes well, it can be actually at the top of D tier. Because you have Queen, you have the Searcher, you have cards that like Lucci, you have like Rampers, you have Kaido, you have like your own Onigashima pretty much. You have the 7-cost kid. You can't attack, and like your cards don't really do anything that impactful. So I'm going to put him at the top of D. Maybe we can make an argument that he can be C tier. But he's not good right now. Maybe good in the future, but he's not good right now. Sanji also doesn't do anything special. So we're not going to even factor that in. Black Yellow Big Mom. I'm doing this for you, my dog. My boy VV Theory James. We're going to put Big Mom somewhere in B tier. I was watching Small Hat Crew's video. Shout out to my boy Chris right there. Good guy, great YouTuber. And he was talking smack about Black Yellow Big Mom. And I think it actually has some viability, right? I think Black Yellow Big Mom is actually a pretty good deck with a lot of sustain, right? Especially the more sets released, the better this deck's going to be, because the triggers are going to be better. It's going to have better blockers because it's black. It's going to have some like more stuff to like kind of like KO stuff because it's black. And obviously its leader effect is pretty generic. It's basically a 4-cost leader effect that gains a life, but you have access to Big Mom, you have access to Yamato. In set 6, you're gonna have access to Gecko Maria, so you can like play cards like Kuzan and like whatever to like draw cards or like, you know, cycle cards in hand. It's gonna be it. I think it's a good deck right now in set 4. I think it's a decent deck. In set 5, I think it gets better because it gets the yellow support obviously, and then it gets cards like well, black didn't really get anything, but yellow support's always good. So I think the deck is pretty good. It has access to Big Mom and Yamato. And you don't even really need it. You're basically like, the leader effect is a bonus because you don't really use it a lot of times. You use like black, yellow, you use Big Mom and you use Yamato to kind of gain life. You use Katakuri to kind of like deal with aggression. And then if all else fails, you have this every turn, the leader effect. So I think it's actually pretty good. I think it's actually better than Rebecca, in my opinion. Okay, and the reason I say that is because like I think that Black Yellow Big Mom is better into like more of like the top decks than Rebecca is, because I think Rebecca will lose to Katakuri, Sakazuki, Luffy, and well, both Luffy's, and possibly Bello Betty, depending on how fast Bello Betty can set up. So yeah, that's why I think that. So next we'll talk about Kinemon. I think Kinemon's really bad. I think Kinemon's probably somewhere in C tier. I think it loses to like, I mean, what doesn't it lose to? I mean, it loses to ST10 Law. It loses to ST10 Luffy. It loses to Sakazuki. Honestly, dude, I think it might lose to Bello Betty. I think, and it definitely can lose to Zoro too. I mean, I obviously Zoro is like not. It's not like unwinnable, but like if they've dropped Buggy, like how are you gonna kill Buggy? There's like no way to kill Buggy with Kinemon. So that's always a problem. And I think Bello Betty can like just OTK it pretty much. Just like Bello Betty can OTK anything, which I'm not gonna mess around with Bello Betty. I think Bello Betty's kind of fun. So that's cool right there. We'll talk about Sabo. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't even know what Sabo does. Let me pull him up real quick. Because obviously we haven't really seen anything from Sabo. I'm not even gonna. I don't even want to cap for you guys. Like I want to actually figure out what Sabo does real quick. So, let me bring up the effect on screen, and then we can kind of go over it together. So Sabo right here is, and you guys can see that, right? Okay. So Dawn 1 once per turn. Oh, I know what he did. Okay, yeah. If your character with 5,000 or more power would be KO'd, you may give that character 1,000 power instead of this turn, instead of that character being KO'd. Okay. So what card does that work with? I played against one online and they played Hina. And Hina basically like stalled one turn for that guy. But after that, what does it do? It I don't think black and red have any synergy at all. Even like Garp has a better leader effect than Sabo, and Garp is terrible right now. So I think Sabo is also just terrible. So I'm gonna put Sabo in C tier. He could be D tier though, to be honest with you guys. He could actually, I'm probably gonna put him in D tier. He's just not good. Like what's his win condition? Because like obviously, like you could say he has cards. I'm sorry, we're probably spending more time on Sabo than we should, but obviously he has cards that he can play like that rush, right? Like Luffy, for example, like rush Luffy. But like other than that, like is the strategy just play a bunch of like rush cards that like can kind of stick to the board a little bit? The problem with that is people aren't going to be attacking the characters. They're going to be bottom decking him or KOing him with effects. Like Zoro can KO him. Dude, Bello Betty could just like run over it, right? Like you use Sabo's effect, and instead of it's at 5,000 now. Bello Betty's character's at like 8,000 or 9,000, so like it doesn't matter. They'll just kill it again. Luffy can kill it with like Kaido or like King if he plays that, or like Polly or something like that. Luffy is just going to attack your life. They don't really care that much about that. Law's going to bottom deck it. Katakuri is going to put it back on your life, and then Sakazuki is going to bottom deck it or KO it. So like none of those even matter that much. I'm going to put him in C tier to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I don't think he's that good. Isho I think is in D tier right now. I don't think Isho does anything. He's gonna obviously be like better than some of these other ones, but Isho doesn't do anything. He doesn't get any new support, and then like all the other colors just get better, so he gets worse by comparison. Kaido is probably going to be somewhere in B tier, because Kaido is really good into Enel, and we'll talk about Enel next. I know I've been kind of saving him for a while, but Kaido's going to be really good into Enel just because he can drop 10 drop Kaido, and like they don't have access to Big Mom, so like if they build a board with like Yamato and like all these other like Holy and like all these other cards, you can just wipe the board. And then obviously if you have Oni, you can ramp back up to 7 Dawn the next turn. You can go 12. They use their leader effect, trash that with your Kaido, and then swing 12 again and kill them, right? So like that's like the death combo. I mean, it's always been the same ever since OP01, but Kaido's gonna be pretty good. Kaido's gonna be better than a lot of these decks. I think Kaido's gonna be like probably like right behind Ace. But I think it's pretty good. And then we'll talk about Enel. Enel's gonna be S tier as well, guys. Enel's super annoying. Like Enel might be the most annoying deck in the entire game, other than like maybe Zoro. I think Enel is just an absolute pain in the ass to deal with, right? And he's also a noob stomper deck, because if you don't know how to play against Enel, you're gonna lose every single time, because like people will like keep attacking his life when he's at 1, and like will have no other attacks, and he'll just gain a life for free and like trash like a dead card from hand, or that dead card could be like a trigger like Thunderbolt, or like the 5/5 trigger that it gets. Like there's just like a lot of cards that obviously like some of them play like Cracker, some of them play like Parasparrow or something like that. I mean, they probably don't play Parasparrow, but they could probably play Cracker or Smoothie or something like that. And then next turn they can Yamato and just do it all over again. I think Enel is super annoying, and it's pretty decent into Sakazuki just because it's like can just outlast Sakazuki, and it can establish Enel, like the 7 cost rush character that literally like can't be like it can't be bottom decked, it can't be KO'd because you can just like trash your own life. So like yeah, they just like it's just like they like have bodies that like can stick to the board, and then they can just have like infinite life pretty much, and like I don't know. I think Enel's pretty good. I think it's gonna be slightly worse than Katakuri though, because I think Katakuri is gonna be good into Enel and Sakazuki, whereas Enel is only good into Sakazuki and like a couple of these other decks over here. So, I think Enel's gonna be slightly worse than Katakuri. Kid probably gonna put somewhere in C tier. I actually like Kid a lot. I think Kid's actually probably the best deck in C tier. Why is this messing up right here? Okay, cool. I think Kid. I've been messing around with it. If you guys are on my Discord, I said that I've been messing around with Kid recently, and Kid's actually super fun. So yeah, there's that. Um, Sorry, I got a text, but yeah, Kid's pretty fun. I think he can be pretty good. He got Punk Rotten next set. He got the 5 cost Kid. He has like a searcher now for Kid stuff, even though there's not really any like Kid cards that you really want to search other than like the blocker Kid. So yeah, there's that, but he does get some support next set, so just gets better by comparison. Then we have Black Luffy. I don't like Black Luffy at all, but for some reason other people do. I'm gonna put him somewhere in C tier, probably ahead of Zephyr, but below Kid. He just has enough tops where like people will like find some way to like make him good. And he's top multiple regionals and treasure cups, so I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't really think Black gets any like new good support next set other than like Mansherry and Rebecca, but I'm not sure how viable that's going to be for Black decks, to be honest with you. So I think Luffy's going to be the best Black deck, but I don't think he's going to be very good. And then Ivankov we're going to put in D tier. Ivankov is terrible. Yamato we're going to put in D tier as well. It's just we're not gonna do Ivankov like that, I'm sorry, we're not gonna do Yamato like that, because Yamato actually can like Yamato has like some, I guess, some type of route to victory, whereas Ivankov like doesn't have anything special. Yamato is still can be a 6k leader on your opponent's turn. It still it got the generic like yellow triggers. Has Yamato, it can do something. Yellow Big Mom, Lin probably gonna be somewhere between like B or A tier. It's probably better than Black Yellow Big Mom by a little bit, because it's a very high skill ceiling deck. It's not Katakuri. It's just not Katakuri. Although it is cooler than Katakuri. I think the Big Mom deck is cooler than Katakuri. It's just not as good as Katakuri, because 7k swing is just really valuable. And then being able to play 10 drop is valuable too. So there's that. And then we'll talk about Vivi. Probably somewhere in like C tier. I think Vivi's pretty good. Probably somewhere in the middle over here. Maybe like around Sabo. Maybe slightly worse than Sabo. Better than Smoker. Maybe. I'm not sure. They get some support. I know that. And then Garp. We're gonna put Garp in D tier. Doflamingo. We're gonna put somewhere between B and A. I think Doflamingo is actually slightly better than Crocodile, because Crocodile just got outclassed by Sakazuki, whereas nobody actually plays like Doflamingo except for like Arlong. So I think Doflamingo can like go very aggressive against Sakazuki while like building a board, and like Doflamingo has like a lot of resources, whereas whereas Crocodile like is very linear. Doflamingo can like just like be very aggressive. You never know what he's gonna do because you don't know what's on the top of his deck, and then he obviously has access to all the new blue support that came out. But time will tell if Crocodile or Doflamingo is better. But I do think Doflamingo is better than Crocodile right now. Luffy, we're gonna put somewhere in B tier, probably like right below Kaido, because his leader effect is just generic. which is good. You know, you're playing with 11 Dawn essentially, but I don't think that he could. There's not really. So like the reason that Luffy was better than Zoro in set 1 was because like Luffy had his leader ability was better with certain cards like Robin and like Brook, I guess, like the OP01 Brook. But like it, there's not really characters that like are good with Luffy anymore that are like impactful, you know, like Nico Robin is like not impactful ever, not anymore at least, right? And then like I think Ace is just better because Ace has like access to 7-cost Ace, which is just really good. It has access to Flame Emperor, so like Ace is just a better like Luffy now. Like they're both 5-life red characters, but one has like better exclusive cards than the other. Crocodile, I think is really bad. I think it's probably somewhere in like C. I think it's better than Yamato and better than Kinemon. Kinemon might be the worst deck in C tier. But I think it's better than Smoker and Yamato just because it has the new purple support and the new yellow support. So we're just going to give it that right there. Rosinante. I think Rosinante is absolutely horrific. I think it's probably like on the same page as like Isho, where like it's a cool idea, but like how relevant is that card or that leader? I don't think it's relevant at all. And then Blurple Kaido, dude, I think Blurple Kaido will always, in my opinion, be like somewhere in B tier, just because like it can literally win any game anytime because it's so good at just dropping massive bodies, and like it's so good at making you play defensive. However, I can acknowledge that it does lose to like pretty much every single deck up here. However, it can beat those decks, so I'm going to give it that. For some reason, we have Law here again, but we're going to talk about our last deck, which is Lucci. Lucci's probably going to be in either C or D tier. Because we got Mancherry and Rebecca, I'm going to put it ahead of Kinemon. But it's not going to do anything in this meta, I don't think. It did get access to Lucci as well, but I don't know. I don't really think it's going to do anything that special. I could see it maybe being ahead of Yamato and Smoker, maybe. But I don't think it's really that good, to be honest with you. I think the better leader is just, if you're going to be aggressive and like pop stuff a lot with like Lucci, I think the better leader is just Luffy right here. But yeah, that's it, guys. Let me know what you think. And, you know, if you like this video, that was like 45 minutes, right? Probably. I mean, I don't know how long this video is, but if you like this video, let me know, guys. I'd love if you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below if you think I'm, you know, smoking crack, or you think I'm right on a lot of these. I mean, only time will tell. And obviously, we'll do like a midpoint kind of tier list whenever kind of the dust settles and we see what's what. But yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.